Bam Adebayo led all scorers from Team USA in their win over South Sudan. Is his scoring, particularly his three-point shooting, a sign of things to come? We'll break it down in today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your everyday podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day, Monday to Friday. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat Media members, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everybody every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon after Team USA beat South Sudan, and they were led not by LeBron James, not by Kevin Durant, not by Steph Curry, but by Bam Adebayo, who was Team USA's leading scorer, 18 points on 8 for 10 shooting, made a couple of corner three-pointers in this one, also added 7 rebounds and assists, a steal, 2 blocks. We'll talk about how this could set the stage for an even bigger season with the Heat next season. But David, he was Team USA's best two-way player. And I think, and this might sound crazy, I think this was a bit of a coming out party for him, which again sounds nuts because he's a 3-time All-Star, All-NBA defense last year. But I still don't think people who aren't watching the Heat as much as obviously you and I do knew that he could play like this, right? Like, we've seen him in all-star games. He doesn't score 18 points. Heck, he's lucky if he scores at all in the all-star game. But the all-star game, as you and I know, is a fake basketball game that means nothing, and they don't take it seriously. But Bam Adebayo, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, all these perennial all-stars take the Olympics very seriously. And when the games are taken seriously, Bam Adebayo plays his best. And I really don't know that a lot of people who don't watch the Heat all the time, but are fans of basketball and are watching the big TNT game every week, the big ESPN game, the big ABC game over the weekend, I don't think they routinely see Bam Adebayo literally be the best player on the court with that kind of star power on it.
I hate using social media as a barometer for these kinds of discussions, but you're absolutely right. Like, the number of people, basketball media, people who should be following basketball regularly and know the nuances of every team, not just a team that they might particularly favor or cover or anything like that, being impressed by Bam Adebayo as if he hasn't been a top 25 player for the last couple of seasons and had these kinds of incredible breakthrough performances. As you said, he's been a multi-time All-Star. This is year 5 of him since Jimmy basically joined the team in 2019, that Bam has been on the highest levels and performed at a high stage at every opportunity. And still, some people are like, wow, Bam, incredible that he's showing up like this. It's like, yeah, he's hit a couple of threes, but this is the basis of his game. This has been the foundation of what he's been for a long time. The fact that he's just spacing the floor out a little bit more, kind of just a little cherry on top of the offensive repertoire Sunday. But this is basically who he has been for the last number of years. And still, they just don't know how to appreciate it. Like, I mean, we've talked about this before. Even Heat fans get lost in the nuances that you and I are Bam apologists for something like this. And yet here we are with the best players in basketball, and Bam somehow leads the team. Joel Embiid, an MVP who we'll talk about a little bit later, benched, doesn't play a single minute in favor of Anthony Davis, and then Bam Adebayo leading the team. Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, the next Michael Jordan. He doesn't come close to Bam's production. Like, it was a really good game for Bam Adebayo, and an impressive showing certainly, but should not be that surprising. But you know what? I'll take it. Because you and I have been kind of on this platform for a long time saying Bam is incredible, Bam is great, and people are like, oh, Bam's overrated, he's not even that good. It's like, are you kidding me? You know, so here we are. We get to kind of revel in the moment a little bit, and I'm glad we had it on this national stage too.
Part of this too, I think, is
international stage. I'm talking about nationally.
Yes. Yeah.
International.
South Sudan figured out how good Bam Adebayo is just now.
Just
So I think part of this too is nationally, the Miami Heat are viewed as Jimmy Butler's team. So you kind of
sure.
start and stop with the Jimmy Butler part of it. It's like, well, that's Jimmy's team, and everybody else is just sort of being a role player around Jimmy. Bam Adebayo was Miami's best player by far last season. That was Bam Adebayo's team last year, right? And it's probably Bam Adebayo's team going forward, unless Jimmy Butler kind of turns things around going into next season or during next season. The other part of this, I think, for Bam on a national stage was what? It's the two NBA finals, the bubble in 2020 and the 2023 finals. Well, the 2020 bubble wasn't exactly what Bam thought it was going to be. And the 2023 finals, Bam was awesome in that series. He averaged 22 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 assists a game while guarding Nikola Jokic and doing a great job of guarding Nikola, or as good as you're gonna do against Nikola Jokic.
Absolutely. Making him work, as we've said before, like that's the baseline for having a good performance. He's gonna get his regardless,
right?
But
Yeah.
if you can at least make him work for it, that's supreme effort on your part.
And yet the Heat lost that series in 5 games. It wasn't even close, and so It doesn't really matter what you do because you got blown out in that series, right? You were 1 game away from a sweep, so he could average 32, 12, and 3. Nobody would have cared, right? Because the Heat lost the way that they did. So when he's had these opportunities on the national stage, whether it's in the NBA Finals or the All-Star game where he's barely a participant, his performance doesn't register, right? It doesn't register on the metronome. But in these Olympics, where his game is sort of tailor-made for FIBA basketball, he's just sort of thrives in this environment. Again, I will remind people, games that matter while playing around other stars. Like, I know we're making a lot out of this one game, but he's been awesome for Team USA through the tune-up games during the exhibition slate against Serbia. He's been great the whole time, and I think people are starting to figure that out.
It should never have come to this point, right? I mean, but it is where it is. I think it just shows the versatility. And it doesn't hurt to have Dwayne Wade hyping him up and kind of, he's so familiar with Bam, obviously, and former teammates and everything else like that. Although that seems like an eternity ago. I mean, we've never, like, Dwayne played with such a lesser version of Bam Adebayo, where Bam was backing up Hassan.
Bam played with a lesser version of Dwayne Wade, right? Like, Bam's
never
played with stars the way when Jimmy Butler cracks that kind of ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of times during the regular season, and then basically for 2 playoff runs out of Jimmy Butler's 5-year Heat career, then you start to see it a little bit more. But Bam is like, when he sets screens for somebody like Steph Curry or Kevin Durant, that screen just screams through the television set, right? It's just like, boom, hits the screen. Steph Curry comes off, drains a Steph Curry 3-pointer. Kevin Durant, smooth stroke, all these things. Like, when he plays next to stars like this, who play like stars, I think it just amplifies everything that Bam Adebayo does. And I do think, had Bam spent his career playing with super all NBA players, and then it doesn't have to be a roster full of them the way that Team USA is, but just like two all NBA-ish type players, or one in like a Derek White type, a top 50-ish kind of 40-ish, 50-ish kind of player, I think he would almost universally be known as a top 15 guy, and probably would even have a Defensive Player of the Year award, because I think playing with he's not the guy who's just going to carry everything on his back, but his game is such that it amplifies stars, but stars amplify his game too. You're just able to notice that stuff a little bit better when you're not obsessing over, well, boy, we sure need somebody to score 25 points. And that one article said Bam had no ceiling once, so it should be him. And everything that he doesn't do is just swept under the rug because he's not scoring 25 points a game.
I don't know. I'm not sure I lean into that 100%. I look, it certainly helps. Like, I mean, Derek White was a fine player, but there's a reason why Boston was able to get him as cheaply as possible from San Antonio, is because he wasn't a good player. Like, he was a fine player in San Antonio, and that's all there is to it. And,
I mean, it was 2 first-round picks, and that's not nothing.
No,
I gave up for Rozier.
Fair enough. Which that's a fair question. The way that he was playing in San Antonio at that time versus the way Terry Rozier was playing in Charlotte, maybe it's also a matter of, like, what
Derek
we've
White's
seen from
younger. He
Rozier up
was
to
sort
this
of on the
point.
up and up
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah, we don't have to litigate that whole thing. But to your point,
I think
I interrupted you.
The point I think is, I don't know that Bam would have stood out that much more with superstar players. I think it would have been kind of hand in hand. Superstar level players get more attention. They tend to go deeper into the playoffs, although Miami's gone deep enough. But it's just kind of how this whole thing, it's worked for Bam and against Bam at the same time. Mostly on an individual level, it's worked against him because it's just this whole idea that it's heat culture that carries you through. It's this idea that yeoman's work and making the most out of undrafted players and everything else like that is what gets you the buy-in to the team concept rather than dependence on individual greatness, where, of course, again, they're kind of symbiotic here. You can't have team success without great individual play. It works that everybody raises their game to a whole other level and that you're all fighting for a common cause. But at the same time, it's not like Miami has had that translate into championship success. The last time they had a title, it was because they had much higher superstar level talent. But in any case, I don't know.
You're right.
I
it kind of
think
blends into the whole thing.
Yeah, like Bam's game,
but it kind of works against him.
Yeah, but Bam that's just who he is too. Like he does all the things on the edges, and it works well. And I don't know. I think we'll talk about this in the next segment because we're looking at whether or not Bam can take his experiences and carry them over to next year. And I'm not sure, based on what we've seen over the course of his career, that's exactly how it's going to play out.
Let's do it after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships. That's also what keeps your ride or die alive, and eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits to LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. And because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your car alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions do apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at Locked On Heat. You can also follow us on your favorite podcast app. So we were talking about what this Team USA could mean for Bam Adebayo and whether or not that could set the stage for a different kind of season next year. We've talked a lot about Bam taking the three-pointers. He had 2 corner threes in this game, right? I think that's something we expect to experiment. I think he'll experiment more with the three-point shooting. We saw at the end of last season. I think that'll just continue to be a trend that we see next season. But in terms of the overall game, beyond just like the three-point shooting and stuff, why do you question whether or not this is going to mean anything for Bam next year?
Because I see the idea being floated around that Bam is earning this kind of mutual respect from other superstar greats, Kevin Durant's, the LeBron James, and that somehow is going to feed his ego to the point where he's going to be able to carry that over and emerge like a shy butterfly, like a confident butterfly from this cocoon of shyness. When Bam has been confident all along, he just leans into what he does well, and that's what everybody appreciates. There's a reason Dame Lillard wanted to come here, not just because they get along with each other on a personal level, but because Dame's job would have been so much easier with a star-level player like Bam Adebayo defending his ass off, setting great screens, doing all the dirty work that, quite frankly, Dame has not been good at over the course of his career by virtue of a number of different factors. He hasn't had that kind of player. Like the last player that he had in Portland that was even close to that was LaMarcus Aldridge, and he wasn't really that type of player either. You had Nick Batum doing great things. You had Robin Lopez doing good things, and that kind of made a really good team. But Bam is a different level player, and I think everybody appreciates that about Bam. I think everybody loves that Bam is a guy who makes all their jobs so much easier because he does all the yeoman's work, all the little things around the edges that make winning so essential and so much easier to do. So I had theorized that this season was going to be a potential MVP type campaign for Bam, that he was going to have this breakout from three, that he was going to score over 25 points per game, and that, of course, he was going to maintain the same or near the same level of defensive efficiency that he's had over the course of his career. But that was when we were wondering whether or not the future of Jimmy Butler and Miami was a realistic one. Like, we had thought that he might get traded. There was certainly that possibility. We had no idea what was going to happen with the contract, and we had no idea that Paul George was going to emerge as a Philadelphia 76er. And so they were going to have to make that full swing into making this team Bam Adebayo's team. Now, I'm not so sure. Now, I think Bam's best path to having a breakout season, if you will, or even a leap of some kind, is going to be dependent on Jimmy Butler and a better version of Jimmy Butler. I just don't think Bam is going to come with another gold medal under his belt, because he's already got one, and it didn't really change his game that much anyway. So I don't know that he's going to come back from these Olympics with a gold medal if, in fact, Team USA is able to maintain this level of dominance and he does win gold, and come into Miami training camp in September and be like, this is my team now, I'm going to dominate. I just don't think he's going to do anything any differently, because that's just not who he is.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying. I'm not really sure what this like respect from LeBron James and the stars on this team thing is coming from. Newsflash, he's had their respect for a long time, man. Like, the guy's been part of Team USA he's a foundational part of Team USA. Like, he's already has a gold medal. He's working for a second one right now. He would have been part of the FIBA team last year if the Heat weren't in the NBA Finals 2 days before all the stuff started. So, this guy has everybody's respect, not just from the players, but from the coaches too. The reason why Bam's a 3-time All-Star is because he has the coaches' vote, the coaches who vote on the reserves. He's never been voted in as a starter. He's got league-wide respect from people who know ball, right? To use Eric Spoelstra's terminology, to the trained eye. Bam Adebayo has the respect.
What did Brian Windhorst tell us about Tom Thibodeau voting for him as a Defensive Player of the Year? Like, I mean, like, he's had that respect for a long time from coaches and players around the league.
So when we talk about the respect, it kind of goes back to what we're talking about in the first segment. It's everybody who isn't watching the Heat closely. It's everybody who has the untrained eye. It's all this stuff. And I don't even necessarily blame them, because, like I pointed out, Bam hasn't exactly had the biggest showcases on these national stages that have mattered, that have resonated. And this one is resonating, and you just need that. And so, yeah, I don't think he's going to change all that much beyond just the 3-point shooting, and maybe the team finding better ways to put him in positions to succeed. But whether it's playing power forward, center, handling the ball more, shooting more corner threes, getting more opportunities to score, getting more opportunities to be more versatile defensively. Are they going to switch everything defensively again next year? All these things, whatever it might be, that's separate. That's a whole separate issue. That could help him. It could help his numbers. It could help his national standing with like national fan base and national media and all this kind of stuff. But it's not going to change the way people in the league feel about Bam. There are already, to your point, David, and it's a great one, stars who want to play with Bam. Those guys already exist. Bam being part of Team USA only exacerbates that in a good way. I think that he's probably making bonds now that he would not have been able to make or keep strong had he not been part of the Olympic squad this summer, right? You got to keep that stuff up. You got to work the relationships just like you do in any industry. But yeah, I think it's totally there. The point you make about Jimmy Butler, though, I want to kind of get back to this because I watched those 2 corner threes a few different times, right? I had the clips. I watched them over. And what set up Bam in the corner on those 3-pointers? The first one was a sidelines out of bounds play where Jason Tatum kind of has a slot cut into the middle of the teeth of the defense. All the defense goes with Jason Tatum, leaving Bam open in the strong side corner. So Steph just tosses it to Bam, open corner 3, easy money, done. The next one he makes is from the opposite corner, and Steph Curry just beats his guy off the dribble in isolation, essentially. Bam's guy has to go with Steph into the paint, and Steph again just tosses it back to Bam in the strong side corner. What did we learn? So what was the similarities in both of those plays? Both of those plays, a star player playing like a star player, attracting the defense, grabbing pulling that defense away from Bam Adebayo, and then Bam in the strong side corner where that pass could be made easily and Bam can get that shot off quickly. And I do wonder if that's something that Team USA or that the Heat look at with Eric Spoelstra on the Team USA staff, obviously, and say, you know what? Like our offense last year, we weren't trying to get Bam any 3-pointers above the break or the corner, but Bam kept saying, "Hey, I want to take threes. I want to take threes." Kept practicing them from the corner. Pulls him aside one day and says, "Don't worry about the corner. Our offense, it makes the pick and pop 3-pointer above the break open for you." Well, what if Spo was to kind of remake the offense in a way that you can't really do midseason, that incorporates Bam in the corner a little bit more? I think that would be interesting. The part that you need with that is you need that player who's going to grab the attention rather of the defense away from Bam in that corner, right?
Gravity.
And part of
They
that
have
too
that kind of
is
gravity. Yeah.
have to have the gravity. And part of that too is Bam is always above the break because he's the guy who sets the screen.
Yeah.
Right? He's the only big man in all of Miami's lineups for the most part, right? Like Caleb Martin masquerading as a power forward, he's not the best screen setter at the top of the arc. So if you would maybe play him with another big, or you have somebody like Terry Rozier who has that fast first step that is capable of taking his man off the dribble without a screen, or, and now we get back to it, Jimmy Butler, who just needs to do the dang thing and play like a superstar with the highest usage rating on the team and all of these things and attract the level, and not just from these slow post-ups where everybody can kind of get into their spots and just wait for him to do his thing. No. Go at the like I tell you all the time, when Jimmy Butler is running face forward into the thick of the defense and then does that like half jump right-handed kind of push jumper, that's the stuff, man. That's when I know Jimmy Butler is like feeling it. It's really easy to turn that push shot jumper into a fling into that strong side corner where Bam's standing for an open corner three.
I'm trying to think, when was the last time Miami's offense actually had a reliable engine? Like, when was the last time? And I don't know that they've had that, and I can't recall the last time it was. Was it
the Bucks and Knicks series from 2023?
Yeah.
You mean for like the whole of the season?
Consistently, yeah, consistently. Was it 2016, like Dwayne's last season? Really?
I wouldn't even go that far. I mean, I'm sorry, I would go further back. I don't think that he was consistently
Like
that guy in
LeBron?
2016. Yeah, I think it was LeBron in 2014.
Yeah, like, they haven't had that person. Like Goran, for all that he was able to accomplish, Dion and his spurts, obviously, Jimmy and his moments, Tyler to some effect. Like, they've all had their share of being playmakers and creating offense for others. Even Bam, like Bam might be the closest thing that they've had, and he's kind of viewed more as a connector than anything else, not really an engine that drives the whole thing. And we're asking Jimmy a lot at this point in his career, in his life, where he's all, approaching 36, 35. Sorry if I keep adding a year to his total there.
Might as
well. It's a lot for him to take on at this point, but that's just the nature of what this team needs right now. They need somebody to be that offensive engine. Even if his scoring takes a leap, that might be better. Like if he's more of the playmaking engine and creating these opportunities for others, because we know he can get his pretty much when he's engaged and ready and does what he can and he'll get his points. But if he's he's not economic. If he's the offensive engine for this team this season, that makes the job for everybody else so much easier, whether it's Bam, Tyler, Terry Rozier, whoever is out there on the floor.
Man, I've been saying this all. That's why I said this all season. That's why every Heat loss, I gave 10 credit cookies to Jimmy Butler or 10 blame pies to Jimmy Butler, because with asking Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson to lift more weight than they're supposed to, you're the star player. You get paid like the star player. You ought to play like the star player. And if you're asking for a new contract that's going to pay you like a star player, then you really have to play like a star player now. And he should have, it's like you said, the guy can roll out of bed and average 22 for a season. He did it again. He averaged 20 a game last year. And he wasn't even trying for 40% of the season, it seemed like, if that much. So it's about the usage rate to me. It's about the touches per game. It's about how many times is the offense going through you, and not through Bam having to set up everything, and not through Tyler Hero trying to be a point guard, which is not his position, and or having to trade Kyle Lowry for Terry Rozier midstream because we just need something. We just need some life. We need this offense to feel something. That was it. And so if Jimmy is playing like that, it makes everybody's job easier. It makes Bam be able to play off of Jimmy a little bit more. all the dominoes just sort of fall into place. All the pieces, all the puzzle pieces fall into place. But it takes Jimmy being the head of the snake, and they need that head of the snake, and they need it consistently. All right. So let's go back to Team USA, though. Should Team USA start Bam Adebayo over Joel Embiid? They have a pretty good argument to do it. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We all love sports. We love them so much. We're talking about Team USA basketball here. You know, we never want them to stop. We were watching the Olympics with every opportunity, every event you can name. Like I was watching with a buddy the other day. We were watching a single canoe slalom. Like, I mean, it was ridiculous. Like we're kind of swerving back and forth and you're watching and you're getting involved. That's how much you get into these events. You know, they're just so much fun. But guess what? The Olympics are going to end. The playoffs have wound down already. You get fewer and fewer games in the sports. Well, they just don't sports like they used to. But FanDuel lets you keep that going whenever you want, because all you've got to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most of your summer. That's FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. If you're new to us, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. It's the best way to support the show. 5-star ratings and reviews are the only ones that count on your podcast app, just so you know. The other ones don't matter. All right, Team USA. They did not play Joel Embiid in this game. It was announced before tip-off that Joel Embiid and Drew Holiday were not going to start. They announced a new starting lineup: Steph Curry, Devin Booker, Jason Tatum, who was at the NPCD against Serbia, Anthony Davis in Embiid's place, and then obviously LeBron. You had Kevin Durant coming off the bench for the second straight game. Not sure a minutes restriction is the right terminology, but they're obviously being careful with him before they insert him into the starting lineup. Bam Adebayo, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton got some run. Derek White was a part of the bench. Drew Holiday ends up playing a little bit in this game towards the end, but Joel Embiid never checked in. I don't know if that was the plan or not. To me, that looks to me like, okay, planned day off for Joel Embiid, who never looked fully there health-wise. So give him a couple days and maybe he'll look a little bit better. That to me seemed planned. If Steve Kerr, by the way, has to choose two people out of the rotation every game, that might be the right way to go, where everybody just sort of round robin, take turns on this thing and say, you know what? And then if Steve just says to the media assembled in Paris, look, listen, there's just too many good players in this roster. We're just going to take turns on who doesn't play, and that way everybody plays and nobody's getting short shifted on their minutes or whatever.
Everybody gets rest too.
And everybody gets a little bit of rest. Like, that's our best plan going forward. Obviously, we're recording this right after the end of the game. I'm sure been asked about these things. We'll see maybe if he said anything about that. But the point being is, Team USA looked really good, and they did not get out to a slow start. And you know, fully acknowledging South Sudan, not Serbia, right? Like, Team USA got out to a tough start against Serbia because Joel Embiid was going head-to-head with the best player on the planet in Nikola Jokic. That was not the case here with South Sudan. But I mean, the Joel Embiid minutes have been a problem this entire summer for Team USA. They've been trying to figure out how to play around him. As we just got done talking about, Bam's game is perfect for FIBA. Anthony Davis and his chemistry with LeBron James and everything that he brings to the table as well, as sort of another version of Bam Adebayo, just works way better in this context. But we're a Miami Heat podcast. I'll frame the question this way to you. Should the Team USA start Bam Adebayo over Joel Embiid and just take Embiid out of the starting lineup altogether?
No, I don't think so. I think we've seen the starting lineup. I think the best one is probably Anthony Davis. And for no other reason than because you're not taking LeBron out of the starting lineup. And given that his comfort level with AD is at such a high level that it probably maximizes what this team can do. Conversely, Bam, much more a jack of all trades, can play alongside virtually anybody. But you see him go out there doing all the little things on the side, for the most part, with the exception of today's game, that's really been his role. He's had some nice showings, but as far as offensive output, not really matching anything like today. And yet you put him out there with Kevin Durant, who is ridiculous at this level. Like he's just unstoppable. Anthony Edwards, another offensive player with incredible high usage. And I think that kind of allows him to do all the other things that he does so well and kind of get these guys their opportunity. And it just seems to me to flow better. Like Embiid is just the odd man out here because like he just, you need to feed him and you can't just keep throwing the ball into the low post and watch him slowly go to work as teams are allowed to kind of be more physical and hack at him a little bit. And he's not going to be able to kind of, fall down to the floor in order to earn a trip to the free throw line. So it's a different style. So it seems like he's the odd man out just because of his overall style of play. But I don't know that Bam is the right choice. I think it would work. I think we'd see LeBron lobs to Bam just as easily as we do see them to AD. But I just think if you're going to maximize the options on your roster, it's probably better for Team USA overall if you continue to go to AD. Although I just think there's too much involved in Embiid's choice to join Team USA over France and Cameroon. And that being the case, like he may have been promised a starting job that, and if that's the case, then I don't know that you can afford to, you can bench him once. I don't know that you can bench him for the rest of the
Well,
tournament.
that's the thing. You almost today had to just not play him. It was either a DNP-CD or not even that. Just you either gave him the day off because you can't bring him off the bench, right? Because I do think that was part of his decision to play for Team USA was maybe something along the lines of, hey, if you play for us, you're gonna start for us. And I get that, right? It's almost an overcorrection from the World Cup last summer where the United States got beat up because we didn't have any size. So they were like, all right, well, the biggest guys in the NBA play for Serbia and for Turkey and for Germany and all these other guys, but who's the biggest guy we can get? Joel Embiid's pretty freaking big. And so that was sort of the answer for that. And then obviously you add Bam and you add Anthony Davis, who weren't part of the World Cup last year, and they just sort of tripled down on legitimate, all NBA caliber NBA centers. I still
looking further. Yeah, I'm sorry, I hate to cut you off, but they're looking down further. Like they have a matchup against Puerto Rico in a couple of days, but looking down at the other teams that they're going to continue to match up, Serbia might still have an opportunity. Yeah. France, like who is the best option to start again opposing Rudy Gobert and Victor Wembanyama? Is it Embiid? Is it Bam? Is it AD? Like you're going to need more size out there. Like who's the best option? And I don't know that Embiid is the right player for that either.
Maybe, but the hard part with Embiid is if he's not in the starting lineup, where is he?
Yeah.
That second unit runs so well because they just get up and down the floor, and it's a lineup where you could play Bam with Anthony Davis. I don't know that you could play Bam and Anthony Davis next to Joel Embiid, right? So if you bring Embiid off the bench, you're kind of forced to pick between Bam and Anthony Davis, and as has been established, those are two of your better players on the Team USA roster. They're both really important in Bam and AD. So while I hear you with Davis starting at center, and I do think that his chemistry with LeBron James is a big part of why their minutes are tethered together, because it's so hard to build chemistry in this sort of condensed timeline. Just have the guys with established chemistry, don't overthink it. But having Embiid as just sort of the supersized guy in the middle with that starting lineup with a quick hook where you can kind of get into the Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo minutes does make the most sense for the politics of this roster, because to me it's either he's starting or he's not playing. And by the way, if we did this on merit, Joel Embiid would not be playing, right? Like not merit in the NBA, merit in what you've done for Team USA this summer,
right?
But you have to play him. You have to play him.
I just love the idea of Eric Spoelstra throwing an arm around Steve Kerr and saying, let me tell you about this guy we had in the roster called Luke Babbitt, and just telling him exactly what kind of minutes restriction he had for Babbitt to Rabbit, and saying the Luke Babbitt minutes for Joel Embiid. MVP or not, buddy, you're getting the Babbitt the Rabbit treatment. You're out of here.
You know what? That's so funny because Steve Kerr, Eric Spoelstra is in his. I think he looks at that starting lineup as something that sort of sets the stage for the rest of his rotations. Steve Kerr is almost the opposite of it, where he's maniacally detailed about what that starting lineup is going to be, to the point where he's probably switched his starting lineup in playoff games 100 times, and I don't even know that that's an exaggeration. Like he's just every other game just changing out his starting lineups. He's obsessed with like the first 6 minutes of every basketball game, where Eric Spoelstra is almost like just like throwing in the towel for the first 6 minutes of the game because it's about like the next 38
it's the last
minutes.
6 minutes.
Right. It's or in the last 6 minutes for Eric Spoelstra. They're almost like polar opposites on how they treat how you open up a basketball game. So that would be kind of funny. Quick question for you. You know what? Maybe we'll tease this. If you could pick one Team USA player for Bam Adebayo to play with for the rest of his career or for the next whatever odd years, just think about it. Don't answer it. Think about it. We'll do that on a show coming up at some point. That one's for the everydayers. For now, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.